Heyo, what's going on, everybody? It is episode number 214 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. I'm still drinking Couchtown every single morning because it's my favorite coffee. I know a couple of my friends actually have turned them on to it, said, hey, you got to try this, and boom, it's as easy as that. All you got to do is go to couchtowncoffee.com, find a coffee you like, and they'll ship it directly to your house. That's it's as simple as that. I mean, you got to buy it, of course, but the prices are extraordinarily comparable to anything you can get in a store. It'll be 1,000 times fresher than anything on the shelf. This is basically the freshest coffee you're going to be able to get. He will roast the coffee specifically for you and ship it to your house. None of that, let's roast it ahead of time and hope somebody buys it stuff. No. This is the real deal. So go to couchtowncoffee.com, find a coffee you like, let them know how you want it roasted, and they'll ship it directly to your house. All you got to do is grind it up and have some of the best coffee you'll ever have. What's cooler about that is if you let them know Audible Farm sent you, they'll give you 20% off because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. Secretly the best coffee in Iowa, maybe. I don't know. It's one of my favorites. That's all I got to say. Check it out. It's totally worth it if you drink coffee, and basically everybody drinks coffee. So check it out, couchtowncoffee.com. This episode is also brought to you by the patrons on the Audible Farm Patreon channel. Got to give a shout out to them. Costs $1 a month, and you can watch video versions of the podcast. And it's just a nice way to support the podcast. And like I said, it's just $1 a month is all it costs. And I've got to say thank you to everyone on there. Nate and Eric and Vince and Ronley and Andy and Abby and Matt and Harold and Justin and Travis. And the McAllister Hours, believe it or not, is one of our patrons on Patreon. So hats off to the McAllister Hours. Love it. And American Made Music, which is a band that one of the members I recently had on the podcast. It's a band from Iowa, is also a patron of the Audible Farm Patreon channel, which blows my mind. So hats off to them too. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Audible Farm on Patreon, $1 a month. It's patreon.com/Audible Farm. Thank you. This week I am sitting down alone. It's a solo episode. I'm not talking about too much in here. I'm talking about shows I've been to. I'm talking about being thankful for being on, like, just having a podcast and having a people that listen and things like that. And it blows my mind that there's like a community here that's being built. And I was recently on another podcast or another show called the McAllister Hours, which doubles as a podcast. It's a show on their channel over on YouTube. But it's totally fun to think about, like, the imposter syndrome that some of us have for, things. And that's another topic I tackle in here. And it blows me away that, people are so kind and people are willing to be as supportive of me, as I am of them, which it just blows me away. It's humbling. It's pretty crazy. So, I talk about that. I talk about, getting a gift recently from a recent podcast guest, which is mind blowing. Being on the McAllister Hours, tackling all sorts of crazy topics over there. And, a little bit of this, that, and the other, just kind of bantering back and forth to myself about different topics. And that's what this episode is. And that's what most of the solo episodes are. But it's fun to sit down and talk to myself and maybe have some people listen in on it. So hope you guys enjoy it. This is episode number 214, and it is a solo episode.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's a solo episode this week. I'm sitting down alone. I'm talking about some good stuff. Well, I don't know if it's good stuff, but what are we talking about here this week? Oh, man. I went to some shows recently. The last few months I've been going to concerts, which is something I used to do a lot of, but as of lately I don't do too much of. So, I guess like when I was in high school, I started going to concerts with my friends. A few of us would just find shows that we wanted to attend, and we pretty much just find a way to make it there. I know there was one occasion where a buddy of mine and I like found some other people in town going to a show, and we weren't necessarily friends with them, but we weren't like not friends with them. We just kind of knew who they were. We came from a small town, and it's like, oh, you're going to this concert? We bought tickets too. Can we ride with you if we pitch in gas? And they were like, yeah, that sounds good. So, I mean, that was kind of a fun one. That show actually was in Chicago, which was like an 8-hour drive. So, hats off to them for letting us come with them. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I've been going to shows for a long time. There have been instances where like me and my buddies I remember we were all like 15 and 16, and we all went up to a show once in out to Omaha. We went to the so-called ballroom, saw like Goldfinger and stuff. It was super fun, just a bunch of teenagers goofing around, driving out there, and I don't know, it worked out fine, worked out great. We all did it. So the older I got, the more I went to shows. I mean, I went to a lot of Iron Maiden shows and a lot of metal shows and things like that. That was kind of what my go-to was. I started, playing guitar, so like the Guitar Gods kind of guys were like guys I went to go see a lot of, and that's kind of the gist of who I went to go see here recently. All the shows were in Des Moines, and let's see here. The first one I went to, I think I went to Polyphia first, but yeah, so I went to the Polyphia show at Woolies, and all I gotta say is they freaking delivered. Holy cow! It's one of those things where I've listened to it so much, like the recordings and things like that. And I've heard all the songs a zillion times, I guess, whatever. But it's one of those things where being a guitar player, it's like, how well is this going to work when they try to pull it off live? And that was something that I was kind of nervous about. Oh my gosh, the door's open. The cat's opening the door. But yeah, that was something I was like kind of nervous about when I kind of went there. I was like, is this going to be as good as I think it's going to be? And I mean, it's one of those things, music's subjective, and not everyone is as nice about things as they could be. So one of the things, you hear is like, these guys aren't as good live as they are in the studio or whatever. And so I really wanted to go check it out. So I went to the show, and all I have to say is just like, wow. I mean, it was amazing. I couldn't believe how good it sounded live. The light show was amazing. I mean, everything was it was top notch. It's not like anything was over the top. Like I said, the light show was amazing. It's not like they had 4 million lights and stuff, but it was basically just like, there was like, let's see here, 8 lights in the back that kind of, maybe 8, 12 lights, whatever in the back that kind of just made an X. And that's where a lot of the designs came off of, was like, the different rhythms and things like that they would play out would kind of play out differently across the lights there. And then they had some side washing lights, which were pretty sweet too. But yeah, that and a little bit of smoke, and that was all they needed really. But it was so cool to see how it was all synced up, how well it worked. It was just such a fun time. I had such a great time going to that show. And yeah, hats off. That was great. That was at Woolies. I don't know, was anybody else I know at that show? I remembered I was like, oh, I'm going to wait and buy tickets or whatever. And I'm glad I got them, because it was eventually sold out like the day or whatever before the show, because I was just going to try and find someone to go with. But yeah, it all ended up working out great. So I ended up getting a ticket and going. And so, yeah, that was a fun time. Otherwise, if you haven't heard Polyphia, I don't know even how to describe it. Like crazy rhythm, clean guitar, shredding, math, rock, kind of whatever. It's just wild. It's all over the board. It's some crazy stuff. So, that's it's totally worth checking out if you're intrigued by wild guitar playing. So, otherwise, I went to see the Aristocrats, and if you don't know who the Aristocrats are, that's another one totally worth checking out. Yeah, that was a wild show too. Went and saw that show at XBK in Des Moines. That's like kind of across the street ish from Lefties, for those that know Lefties, down in Des Moines. But yeah, it's the first time I had ever been there. I'd never been to a show there before, which is kind of crazy to think that the venue's been there and I've never been there. So I'm not from Des Moines. I'm not there all the time, but I go to enough shows, smaller shows and things like that that I figured I would have gone, before now. But yeah, I ended up going to that Aristocrats show that was there maybe a month or so back, and that was a great time too. The Aristocrats were amazing. Holy cow! All the songs were about like outer space and dinosaurs, if that makes any sense. And they're all instrumental. So go figure that one too. But for those that know, Guthrie Govan, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Govan. Somebody correct me online if I'm wrong. But yeah, that he's like one of those like, yeah, he's the guitar god or whatever. So he's one of those guys that's like super, super good at guitar and can pretty much just do just about anything on it. So he made like, I think the story I'd heard, and this is just like go Wikipedia or whatever, but I think the band was kind of just thrown together for like an event at like maybe at NAMM, that music festival. And I think that's what it was, if I'm not mistaken. It was something kind of like that where they were like, you three are the musical entertainment, figure it out. And they just like did, and that's the band. They didn't, if I remember correctly, they didn't have any really initial thoughts of like trying to make a huge deal out of it because they were all busy musicians anyways, but they ended up making a band and going with it. So yeah, I went to the show. I remember listening to their first album a lot. Like a lot. So I had listened to their first album quite a bit and had not listened to any of their newer stuff. So I'd say there was a good chunk of stuff that I was not as familiar with. And it's still fun going to those shows to watch those people play because that's, I don't know, it's jazz kind of. Like, I don't know exactly what it is or how you would describe it, but it's basically people with the ability to bend all genres of everything of what's going on. But yeah, the time signatures were wild. The beats were wild. Everything was just crazy. If you've never heard the Aristocrats, I totally suggest checking it out. I believe if I had to point at one band that, as weird as it sounds, kind of got me onto like looking up and discovering some of the newer music that's out there, because it sounds weird, but it's hard to find new music when you find what you like. It's like, I like this is what I'm sticking with. And it's hard to keep an open mind and listen to something and be like, oh, this is neat. And I feel like that's why some people think if they're the ones that find it first, they will be the ones, like, if I find this organically without somebody telling me to listen to it, I think I'll be more open-minded one way or the other, especially if it's like blind listening, where I guess the gist I'm trying to say is like I put the Aristocrats stations on shuffle on different like streaming platforms and was like, all right, let's see what comes out here, on these stations that are based on, this is based on stuff you might enjoy based on the Aristocrats. So I found some of those things and ended up finding a bunch of bands that I really, really enjoyed. And I believe that's kind of how I ran into like Polyphia eventually. You just go down the rabbit holes of certain bands that you like, and it just takes you to these directions where you're like, look at this. I like this band. I like that band. And I would definitely say I think, honestly, the Aristocrats were the first band that kind of bent me into like listening to, I don't want to say more modern stuff, but kind of opening my eyes back up to listening to new music, and one of the bands that I found because of them was the Travis Larson Project. And that's like been one of my favorite bands for a long time. That's another one worth checking out if you like instrumental music. But yeah, all this is instrumental music, which is kind of crazy to think that I don't know. I guess if I was young and someone was like, you're going to grow up and you're going to like instrumental music, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know if I want to, yeah, I don't know. It just seems kind of odd that, that instrumental music, because I mean, what is it? Am I just going to ride an elevator forever for the rest of my life? Is that why I'm going to like, why instrumental music? I don't know. But I guess it kind of speaks to me, and I guess me kind of being an instrumentalist in some capacity, I guess, it kind of intrigues me, and it's one of those things where like, I wish I could do this, but I also haven't spent, 5,000 hours, in the last year and a half, like practicing like some of these people have, practicing 8+ hours a day to get as good as they are. But that's one of the reasons that I'm intrigued by it. I want to go see these people go out there and perform and show me what they can do. And yeah, I always viewed stuff like that as worth the ticket price and worth the drive. And I've went to go see a lot of instrumentalists and a lot of not just guitarists, but a lot of people that play a lot of different instruments, stringed instruments usually. But um, like I've seen like Bela Fleck, who's like possibly the world's greatest banjo player, maybe. And this is all subjective, but I've seen Jake Shimabukuro, which is like the world's greatest ukulele player, maybe. And Chris Thiele, maybe the world's greatest mandolin player, maybe. But like I've gone to see like all these different instrumentalists, and one of the ones that I mean, I wanted to go see this guy forever, and I've been going to watch shows, and I know there's some older people that listen to this like, you're easy, ooh, squeak my shoes. I know there's some older people that listen to this that are gonna think like, ooh, Junior, like you need to get those numbers up. But I've been going to see shows for, now almost 20 years, which is wild, and for most of that time, I've really wanted to go see Joe Satriani live, and I recall when he was with Chickenfoot. I had debated going to see him a couple times. I was like, this could be really fun, but it's not, I want to go see Satriani play Satriani stuff, and the ultimate dream, honestly, back in the day was to go see G3. I wanted to go see a G3 tour. I never ended up doing it. Now it's not what it used to be, so it's like probably won't ever happen again. But, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'd seen Steve Vai probably like 5, 6, 7 times. And it's not an exaggeration, because I can remember seeing him with different people different amounts of times. Like I've seen him with a couple people like 2 times and someone else like 2 times. Then I've seen him alone once, and I've seen him with a couple of different friends a couple times. Then I saw him on the Generation Axe tour. So I've probably seen him like I said, it's like 7 times. But somehow I missed out on Satriani. And it's not like Satriani doesn't tour. He toured, basically every year, but a lot of times it was just like Minneapolis. It's like, don't want to go to Minneapolis. Or like Kansas City. It's like, I don't want to go to Kansas City or whatever. But sure enough, Satriani booked a date at Hoyt Sherman. And that's a venue down in Des Moines. That's crazy. 3 different venues. There you go. Woolies, XBK, and Hoyt Sherman. 3 different kinds of venues and 3 different sizes. Love it. But yeah, he was booked there. So I think it was like the day of the show, or maybe the day before the show or something. I had messaged some friends that I had down there. I was like, you guys want to go see this? Like, tickets aren't super expensive. There's some in the balcony. We can just go sit up there and enjoy it from up there. It's you want to go up front, obviously, or whatever. But sometimes I just go to shows. It's like, I'm just going to kick back and just relax and enjoy this. And that's exactly what I did. It's like I waited 15 plus years to see this, and no amount of weirdos in the seats near me yelling and other stuff got to me even in the slightest bit. I just had an absolute blast. Went and saw Joe Satriani. Finally checked it off the bucket list. Let's see here. Boom. For those watching on Patreon, that's the t-shirt I got. Pretty awesome. So, and that's another thing is like, I from all these shows, and like most of them, I bought a concert shirt. So I have concert shirts for days, and it's funny because like a lot of them I'll just put in boxes, because it's like, who wants to wear like, a slightly worn, off black colored now after it's been faded through years of like, just sitting there. Who wants to wear like, a 2012 concert shirt? I don't know. Let me ask you guys this. What do you think of this? Because I was like, just kind of put those away because I figured it looked kind of hokey. Like, go to a new concert, dude. Just like go to some other one or whatever. I didn't want to seem like some guy that was just like holding on to something from back in the day or whatever. But I do have all these super old concert shirts, and occasionally I bust some out when I go to shows, or like I'm gonna go to like a Maiden show. I'm gonna bust out one of the like the 2008 tour I went to or something. Like go bust out one of those shirts or something to that to that effect. But is wearing old concert shirts hokey? What do you guys think? Or is it like cool? Because I had a couple people tell me like it's actually really cool that you have those shirts. So like I would wear them even if, because I have to think like those shirts from 2006, 2007, 2008 that I have, 15 plus years old. Pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of wild to think about that stuff that I have all those concert shirts, but I barely wear them. And I got a new Satriani shirt. I'm wearing this thing with pride though, because holy moly, it took me forever to go see him. And of all the guitar gods, he's the one that I probably look the most like. For everyone on Patreon, you get the joke. But yeah, I don't know. You guys have seen the pictures. I definitely have a close cut. Let me just say that. So I look kind of like, Joe in some capacity. Sure can't play like him, but I had a blast watching him. So those were the big three that I went to recently. I know Steve Vai is going to be in Des Moines at Hoyt Sherman, I think next week, maybe. I've asked a handful of people to go. Some of them said yes, and then when I asked them later, they were like, I don't know, so whatever. But I haven't bought tickets yet. Last I looked, it had not sold out quite yet. But maybe I'll just go alone and sit up in the balcony like I did last time. Holy moly, I had so much fun. It was actually the first time I'd ever been in the balcony at Hoyt Sherman. Every time I've been to Hoyt Sherman, I've sat like relatively close, or somewhere like that. Like I said, I used to be one of those people that's like, well, I gotta get tickets right away, like right when they come out. I got the pre-sale codes, and I still get a lot of the pre-sale codes emailed to me and stuff. But even nowadays, you go on there and half the tickets are already like instantly sold, and like there's bots and all this other stuff, and it's just not as cool and convenient and nice as it used to be. Yeah, I don't know. Plus, we're not all, I'm not young. I can't go out there and buy a block of 4 tickets and just like tell my buddies to come with, and they will. People have obligations and lives and things like that, and other stuff they want to do. It's not like, they're all getting older. It's not like you just want to go to concerts for the rest of your life forever, but, it has been a blast, like kind of getting back into it. Ever since I started playing music, I haven't gone to as many shows, to watch music, and I still have, but, it hasn't been as much as recently. But most of the shows that I've gone to in recent past have been, those guitar gods kind of guys or whatever. Like I said, I saw that Generation Axe tour, whatever that was, 4 or 5 years ago. That was Steve Vai and Tosin Abasi and Malmsteen and Zach Wilde and Nuno Betancourt, and I think that's it. But yeah, it was like that was that group of dudes. Otherwise, it was like I saw Tony McAlpine maybe once or so when he came through. Felix Martin maybe a couple times, who's like another weird one. You got to go check these guys out if you've never heard of them. Tony McAlpine, I actually saw him on tour with Steve Vai the first time I saw Steve Vai on tour, which was absolutely wild because he had Tony McAlpine and Billy Sheehan on the bass. Anyways, I'm just rambling about shows I'd been to and stuff like that. But has anybody been to any cool shows? Anybody going to that Vai show? Maybe I'll buy a ticket. I'll see you there. Maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. It could be a good time, and I'm kind of looking forward to it, even if I have to go alone. I honestly don't mind going places alone. I do a lot of it anyways. So it's not that big a deal. I don't mind driving down the road alone. I don't mind driving at night. Then I don't have to worry about, it's just me. It's like, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to eat. I'm going to, take a nap or whatever. I'm going to go get some, food or what. I can do kind of whatever I want. So it's kind of nice. But, hoping to maybe catch some more shows, as the winter progresses. It's kind of weird. Like, as this year's been odd in some capacities where I feel like the podcast has accordioned a few times. Like I'll have too many guests and then I'll have not enough, and then I'll have too many and then I'll have not enough. And it's the same way with like going to play shows and going to like watch shows. But maybe I'm just kind of figuring out as I grow up, like, and establish like certain patterns. That's kind of how certain things just kind of tend to go. You got a lot of stuff going on today, not much going on tomorrow. You got a lot of stuff going on the next day, and you can try and break it all down, but it's not, nothing's ever perfect because it's just the way it is. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a good handle on it. A solo episode, obviously, this week, but still, I've got a handful of guests scheduled out for the next week. And inevitably sometimes guests will cancel or, things just happen. But, that's why I try and schedule extras out. I'm going back through and messaging people, and some are getting back to me. So I appreciate it if you've gotten back to me. I know I've gotten a lot of messages in the last month. So I'm hitting y'all up and hop on the podcast. And I had a couple people reach out too, which is really awesome. it's one of those things, if you reach out and I can find enough information on you to pull together something that might kind of sound like an interview, and if it's intriguing to me, yeah, I'd pretty much have just about anyone on here. I've been debating having some, just some self-employed people on here and things like that, just to kind of mix it up just a little bit. But at the same time, I'm still going to try and lean as closely into something that's like entertainment based as I can, because this is the one thing we all enjoy. We all enjoy entertainment. We enjoy art. We enjoy music. We enjoy going to see pro wrestling shows and acting and things like that. We enjoy all that stuff. So that's what I'm kind of out here to support. And it does have its perks, though, being the person that supports all this stuff. I don't know if he wants me to show you this, but I'm showing it to you on the Patreon. Boom. That's what I'm talking about right there. See that? Wham. Looks good. For those that don't have the Patreon, Mike Walsh sent me a copy of his new CD, Losing Control. Man, I'll tell you what, that makes me smile so much. And nobody has to give me anything, but I'll tell you what, for somebody that I just randomly met online, I really dig Mike Walsh, and it's not because he gave me a free CD. I'll tell you that. I love it, man. I know he and I have traded like merch back and forth before, so I get it. It is what it is. Maybe it's a trade, tit for tat. But still, I've got a copy of his CD, and it just warms my heart that there's a handful of people that have sent me their CDs, and I have this nice collection of people's CDs that I'm starting. It's like I'm going to be my own little mini radio station or something, or like I've been doing this for 4 years, and I've had the ability to talk to quite a few different people, and most of them are still making music. And yeah, I mean, it's wild to think I've been doing this for 4 years, and just kind of, I can't believe what I've accomplished. And it's not like I'm trying to toot my own horn, but I guess if for those that don't know, I was recently on the McAllister Hours, which is a show / podcast that's based out of Des Moines, and Coleman McAllister is the host. He's been on here a couple times, and I enjoyed listening to his podcast. It's kind of like an open forum for discussion for any opinion that he's, he likes to play devil's advocate, but at the same time, he wants everybody to kind of talk about what they want to talk about. So he went on there and just basically like gave me an open forum. And I went into the podcast, most of the time I'm fairly reserved online nowadays, but I went into that podcast thinking to myself, I kind of want to revert to the way I used to be. And for those that used to know me, I used to be very outspoken with my opinions. And, for those that have just met me basically through like the podcast and or possibly through playing music and things like that with different bands. But the people that have met me through that might not know me as very opinionated, because I just like the last 5-10 years, I haven't been as opinionated online. But yeah, I mean, I basically just threw caution to the wind and just talked about basically any topic he wanted to tackle, and I gave my opinion on it. And one of the topics we talked about, you're gonna have to go back and listen to that one if you want to hear it. Otherwise, it's totally cool. I understand a lot of people just tune in here to hear the guests, but yeah, go back and listen to that. But one of the topics we talked about was like imposter syndrome, and I feel like it's a topic that might need to be openly discussed. But I had a few people reach out to me after I shared that link to that video clip that Coleman had made for the McAllister Hours on Facebook. I shared it. A lot of people watched it. I had some people reach out and say like, dude, I get it. I feel the same way you do. And it wasn't always about podcasting. It wasn't always about music, which kind of blew my mind how there's so many people out there literally just working hard and trying their best to feel like they fit in. And it's people that I feel like they fit in, but for some reason they feel the same way I do, where they're like, I don't know if I fit in. And it's like, dude, you totally fit in. But, once again, it's one of those things where imposter syndrome is a thing. And so it was a topic that was definitely touched on over on the McAllister Hours, and the reel that he has out there for it is totally worth a watch. It's a nice little short reel that we kind of talk about, what it is and why it impacts some of us. But yeah, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell to, to feel that way. I do want to bring up one more time that, you know, thank you to anyone that has ever sent me things. It's not like it is never ever required for anyone to ever send me anything, but holy moly, I'm grateful. It's some that do know me, it's like I'm weird about getting and giving gifts. I don't know why. It's odd. It's an odd thing, but I appreciate it. So all I've got to say is this, and this is just a plug once again, but Mike Walsh's new album's out there, and it's totally worth checking out. Let's see here, Losing Control. Go check it out online. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, the music video for Tennessee is out there. That's worth checking out as well. I mean, there's all sorts of goodies. Mike's just been a busy guy lately, so go check him out at one of his shows and see what he's got to offer. Because I'll tell you what, I've met so many people doing the podcast that every now and then I sit back and reflect on it, or I'll see people that I had befriended from the podcast just online, and it's wild because most of the guests in some capacity or another have made it into one of the circles of one of my social medias. So like I see what they're doing, generally on a week to week basis when I get on social media, which hasn't been as much lately as it used to be, but it feels nice. I will say that though, not being on social media as much, it feels good. It's tough to do. It takes some time to like get used to doing it, but I took a little lesson from Mike Schulte, with like scheduling out. Mike Schulte from the Pork Tornadoes. He's been on this podcast before. He had the Iowa Music Podcast. He talked about this on that episode. But basically, like if you have social media and you need it for like a band or a business or something, and you don't want to spend all day on it trying to like, oh, I got to post at 9:30 and then I got to post again at 6:45 or like whatever times they are or whatever. But instead of doing that, you can just schedule it all out, and it kind of makes it easy. And then you can just, now your time online is basically just going on and checking up on your things. Are there comments on there you need to address? Things like that. So now you have like a better reason to go online. It's just to check that stuff, and boom, you're off. And you don't have to worry about like scheduling out time or just constantly being on your phone to be like, oh, I should probably make a post or whatever. So yeah, scheduling things out definitely helps out quite a bit. And that's kind of what I've done with my social media. And it has, it's helped out quite a bit with like just my general day to day, like everyone always says that I quit social media and I feel so much better, but having it take a little bit more of a back seat has kind of led me to have more free time to do the things that I want to do. And it sounds dumb, but I think maybe that just, even if it's not much free time, I think it's just maybe I'm more present with the people I'm with. And another one of those things was I had turned off a lot of the notifications on my phone for a lot of different services, or set up timers on them. And I'm finally like starting to adhere to the timers on them. So if I'm on my phone too much, it'll just start locking me out of apps and things like that, which is okay. I can still bypass it, and if I need to get into it, but still it's kind of nice to have those limits set out on there ahead of time, and then to do my best to adhere to them. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things about social media, and my least favorite things is the fact that it's so helpful and it's so useful, and you can get the word out there and talk to so many different people and meet so many people, like for instance with music and this podcast and things like that in my life. But also you end up with that like fear of missing out, and it ends up being like a little bit of a drag on your day to spend all day online and things like that. We all love social media and we all hate social media, but at the same time, it's just one of those necessary evils. So, anybody that had any advice on ways to kind of like, not necessarily kick it, because I don't want to kick it, but it's a nice way to mitigate being on it all day. That was, what I had kind of read and how I'm going about it. So, doing all right with that. It's tough to remember to like, oh, I got to go back out and schedule all this stuff out, or like, oh, I forgot to schedule out, the Patreon post, which happened. So I had a Patreon episode that came out a day later than it should have. But things like that. Otherwise, there's things that it does help out with quite a bit. So if that's something you guys are struggling with or you want to do, or it's just a nice way to get things out there with your band where it's just like, I've got a show coming up in a few weeks. I'm just going to schedule out some posts. I'll post, Monday and Wednesday and Friday about the show. And then the show's on Saturday and, wham, there you go. Boom. Easy. It's all set up. You don't have to go log back in every single day and be like, well, got a show, but because it's already there, and that gives you time ahead of time to kind of goof around and actually be a little bit more useful at the same time with your time on social media, where like you don't have to be at a computer to schedule this stuff out, which is another fun thing about it. So it's just something that's worth checking out. But yeah, I don't have too much else I really wanted to get into here. I kind of wanted to talk about the shows I'd been to, thinking about going to another show, being on the McAllister Hours. What an absolutely wild episode. The joke I had made was like, I feel like every opinion I held in for the last like 5 to 10 years was finally just like, and it's like he opened up Pandora's box and they all came out at once, and he caught lightning in a bottle because he had the cameras rolling, ladies and gentlemen. So go check that out over on his channel or his social media, basically anywhere or wherever you're listening to this. Go check it out. It's over on the McAllister Hours. You can look for that anywhere, and I should be the most recent episode, or one of them, I guess, because he puts out 2 a week now. He's starting to catch up with me when it comes to episodes. And we talk about that in the episode. We talk about all sorts of goofy stuff, not just music. And I mean, it's basically like anything that's been a hot button issue in politics for the last handful of years. We like start picking some of those out and talking about them, and just it's a mixed bag of wildness. So go check it out if that's something that it sounds like it interests you, or if you just kind of want to hear me talk some more. But if you don't want to hear me talk some more, I've totally understandable. There's plenty of other good McAllister Hours episodes out there. So go just squeak over there, scroll past my episode, and just kind of start reading through some of the descriptions on the other ones. You'll be like, holy cow, I'm going to check this one out. I'm going to check that one out. He's got a little bit of something for everybody over there. So hats off to Coleman. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it. I appreciate that we've built like we talked about it. It's competitive, but it's not. It's we have this kind of like buddy friendship we kind of got going on because we both have podcasts and we're kind of sort of ish a little bit talking about the same thing, but sort of kind of not. So I love being over there on his podcast. I love tuning in, seeing who he's got on there. He does a really good job on his social media with the reels. It's worth going to his social media just for the reels, honestly. Just go check those out, and they'll suck you into an episode. That's how it works. That's how it works. What can I say? That he does it for a job. He went to school for it, so he's good at it. So yeah, hats off to him over there. Just he's cruising right along, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. Go check out the old episodes that we got here too. There's some good episodes. In the recent past. All I gotta say is there's a lot of people that listen every week, and there's a handful of people that listen sometimes, and there's I totally get it. Everyone listens inconsistently, but yeah, the last episode was Mike Walsh. Thanks again to Mike for hitting me up with one of these copies of his CDs. It's super cool. If you're not a CD person, I know he talked about in his episode about getting some vinyl in. Otherwise, like past episodes, Ron Lee King, Whammo, totally worth it. Go check that one out. He's been one of pretty much the favorite guests on this episode. He's requested a lot by a lot of people. So, yeah, I mean, he's back on the episode. Plus some new people who haven't been on in a while, people I've never met, which is awesome. It's tons of fun to sit down and talk to people I've never met. So there's going to be some more of those people in the upcoming weeks, which makes me nervous but excited. So hope you guys are too. I'm going to check out. It's just a short episode this week. Next week, like I said, I've got a few in between now and then scheduled out. So we'll see who ends up shaking down to be the first one, but it's going to be a good time. Thanks, guys. There it is. Episode 214 is done. It's done for. I can't wait to get some guests back on here. Like I said, the last couple weeks have been wild. I've recorded a bunch of guests really close to one another, and then I had to space the episodes out, and then I did it again. And I had a lot of backlogs there for a little bit, but it was kind of wild to get everybody in on to be on the podcast. And then obviously, I dropped the ball a little bit, but hey, we're going to get some more guests back on here soon. Got some guests scheduled out. I am stoked about it. So hope you guys are too. Go check out the past episodes. If you're listening to this one and you skipped over the last couple, trust me, some of those new people in there and some of those old guests on there, they've got some fun new stuff going on. Totally worth checking out. So check those older episodes out. Otherwise, we've got Audible Farm on Patreon. One more time, I'm going to mention that. $1 a month. Video versions of the podcast are over there. I'm thinking about trying some bonus content. I've got some basic ideas I kind of want to try, but I don't really want to. I don't want to go too nuts with what kind of content I'm kind of trying to do over there, because I just don't have the time to make piles and piles of content and edit it all down. I would love to, but that would require a little bit more doings. And so if you guys have some suggestions for things you would like to watch over on the Patreon, hit me up. What would be worth $1 a month to you? What would you do for a Klondike bar? Otherwise, other than the Audible Farm Patreon, there's the Audible Farm shop. shop.audiblefarm.com. All the goodies over there. Check out the past episodes. Check out all the social medias for the past guests. Gotta love it. Speaking of social medias, super close to getting to 1,500 likes or followers or whatever's on Facebook, and super close to 500 on Instagram. So if you guys have either one of those and you aren't following Audible Farm over there, check it out if that's something that interests you. Otherwise, I really don't have too much else to talk about this week. I did most of it in the episode, and these intros and outros on the solo episodes, it's like putting an extra piece of bread around your sandwich as far as I'm concerned. It's just a little bit too much me. It's kind of like, hey, here's some me, here's some music. Hey, guess what? Here's a little bit more me, and there's some music and some more me, and then I'll talk while the music's playing or whatever. Whatever. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I added a minute by talking about how I talk too much. So, I'm out. Peace.